Time to talk commodities. We're going to look at the dollar, gold, oil, natural gas on the weekly time frame. We'll zoom in from there. And on some, we're going to look at the monthly time frame for clarity. But starting with the dollar, we had a pretty significant pullback at this point. It was an inside bar with the tightening range compared to last week's candlestick. We know that the weekly higher low, in order to be maintained, has to hold 96.60, but this is a pretty firm rejection from that triple top at 97.71 at this point. So if we look at it on the daily time frame, we're looking for the daily higher low to be established, and we saw the inside bar form and another inside bar on Friday, and it doesn't look like our daily higher low has been established just yet because we closed down at the low of the day. So if we see a bear break of 96.39, then we know the daily higher low has not been established yet, whereas if we see a bull break of 96.79, we'll say the daily higher low has been established, and we would look for a lower high somewhere in the 97.30s, 97.20s range. So the short-term action, if we look on the hourly time frame, is a bit sideways, but clearly with a bearish lean to it with the weekday on Friday. And it's pretty much going to be up to the weekly uptrend to be maintained or not. If we look on a longer-term time frame and look at it on the monthly chart, we can see clear resistance here. And the last thing that the bulls want to see, and of course what the gold bulls would love to see, is a double top and then a loss of the monthly higher low. So a break of 95.03 from here would be a significant shift in the longer term momentum. And we're going to look at gold here in just a second on the monthly time frame. If this breaks, the odds of gold being a weekly, or I should say a monthly bull flag, will increase. And if we see a bull break of the triple top of 97.71, gold is pretty much going to be a monthly equilibrium in my opinion. So watching gold on the monthly and weekly time frame is going to be key for the longer term outlook on what we're looking at for gold. And just to compare it here, here's gold on the monthly time frame. Here's our monthly higher low trying to form. It's still pretty healthy at this point. We have a long drawn out multiple year equilibrium shaping up. And if the dollar breaks that 95.05 support level after the triple top, the odds of gold going up to test resistance of 1347, 1367, 1375, those odds will go up very high if we see that dollar weakness. Again, if the dollar breaks 97.71 triple top, I would anticipate gold is going to break 1280 support, the current low of this pullback, and then look to pull back in the mid to lower 1200s to continue tightening up this weekly or monthly equilibrium. So we have the low, high of the bull move, higher low, double top, pretty much lower high, higher low here, and then we just formed our lower high. So the question is, can we get brief, very bullish consolidation into continuation, breaking this range, which would be very bullish long-term on gold, or are we going to see the dollar bull break and have to pull back and watch this pattern continue to tighten up, likely towards the end of the year, if that is the way that we are going to pull back? So it's getting interesting, and that's going to dictate most likely scenarios with how the dollar breaks on that weekly time frame, whether we keep the weekly uptrend and break the triple top, or whether we lose the weekly uptrend after rejecting from the triple top. It's going to be telling. Oil on the weekly time frame, significant follow through. So we've got higher lows on the weekly now at 51.22 and 54.50. Those are our steps on the way up for higher lows. And as far as resistance goes, we are in the area of a lack of resistance. We're looking up at 60 psychological as the next level. So we have to keep an eye on the longer term mindset here as well, the monthly time frame, because I look at the long term and I say, what is the most likely scenario? And then I look on the shorter term time frames and look for the clues that that is indeed playing out. So we have the high and the low, and we can just say that the odds that we're going to see a V-shaped recovery and head all the way back to $76 is extremely unlikely from where we stand right now. We are likely going to form a monthly lower high sometime in the near future and then have to pull back and form a higher low. Now, the tricky part is timing it, because there's so much space to work with a lack of resistance, and the bulls still have control at this point. We could see this lower high form at $59 where we are at, or we could see this lower high form at $68 in another 2 months. So again, not trying to predict when this monthly lower high is being set just yet, and our guide on that is the weekly time frame. We can say as long as the weekly uptrend is maintained, the monthly lower high has not been set yet. When we lose the weekly uptrend on oil, that's our indication that the monthly lower high has been set and that we're going to look to pull back and form a higher low and a tightening range. And this is very important to me because, in my opinion, Oil and the S&P 500 go hand in hand. And if you overlay them, you will see that it has been significantly correlated ever since the top in October, the bottom at the end of December, and now this 3-month bounce that's currently playing out. So if I see oil lose the weekly uptrend, that's an indication to me of a monthly tightening pattern on oil and a likely monthly tightening pattern on the S&P 500. I just talked about that a little bit in the market video that I just put out. So longer term picture here is getting important, with the weekly time frame being our zoomed in version to get more details. And that's usually, that's a lot longer term than we're usually looking. Being a day trader, I'm usually doing that same thing, but using the daily time frame and the hourly time frame for more of a micro view on things. This is certainly the same style of technical analysis, but on a longer term macro perspective. So as far as the daily chart goes for oil, looks like a potential temporary top. We saw a huge bull move on this 5 days. And again, if you overlay the S&P 500 in the past 5 days to oil, they are very similar. Oil went 8% in the last 5 days. And you'll see the strength on the S&P 500 here as well. So it looks a little bit toppy, the 4-hour time frame. We did lose the uptrend. So we have to be watching for the potential of further consolidation to form a daily higher low. And we can anticipate the daily higher low is going to form because all the bulls need to do is hold 54.50, and they gave themselves a bunch of space to work with. So the weekly uptrend is not in jeopardy at this point, but we're going to continue to monitor it, because if we get little clues of weakness on the daily time frame, pretty much we have to lose the daily uptrend, we have to lose the weekly uptrend, and then our monthly equilibrium is playing out. So daily uptrend is the first thing to be watching for, and it's still easily intact at this point. Natural gas on the monthly or the weekly time frame, we formed our lower high on the bounce, and we've started pulling back. So we have our lower high here from a bounce attempt back earlier in the year. We had the low of the pullback. Here's another lower high on a weak bounce attempt, and now the bulls are pulling back to form a higher low compared to 257.1. In order to change this weekly trend, we have to hold 257.1 and then turn around and break the double top at 288.9. That would give us the weekly trend change for the first time since the monster insanity move at the end of 2018, and that would be a clear shift in momentum. So I look at the monthly time frame and say, are we due for support to hold? And we can see historically, this is absolutely a support range down in the 250s, and it has been the case for the last 2+ years. So here we are right in this range. You can see just with this line of where we held the low of current consolidation, look how many candlesticks bounced off of this level over the past 2 years. The answer is a lot. So it is time to be watching for the potential of a weekly trend change. We just need that follow through from the bulls. At this point, the daily time frame is consolidating with a loss of the uptrend. Here's our lower high. And the question is, are we going to come down and break 2749 and continue this pullback with daily lower highs and lower lows? If we do not, if we change this daily trend back to bullish, that's going to favor the weekly trend for the bulls as well. So certainly keeping an eye on things. I know seasonality is big in natural gas, but it's more, I'm a chart guy, obviously, and I'm going to be watching that longer term support and whether or not this weekly trend can change to begin to favor the bulls, because certainly it has been favoring the bears for a significant amount of time over the last 4 months. So that's where we stand in the commodity world. Pretty much just watching longer term here. I'm not short-term trading commodities at this point in time. When I get clarity on these longer-term monthly setups, then I will be more inclined to be playing these names in the shorter term as well, whether it's through the leveraged miners, which we forgot to look at. Let's pull those up. So GDX, we are looking for the potential of the bull miners to try and form monthly bull flags here. And again, they will confirm, in my opinion, if the dollar breaks that support level and if gold sees its bull flag on the monthly confirm. If the dollar breaks resistance, we'll likely see gold pull back on the monthly. We'll likely see these miners pull back and have to form a higher low on the monthly as well. As far as the weekly chart goes, it looks like a lower high is being set. And if we drop with a lower high and lower low, then again, the odds of that monthly bull flag will decrease significantly. And GDXJ is very similar. On the weekly time frame, lower high has been set, and the question is, are we going to drop down and break the low from 2 weeks ago and continue, or I should say confirm, the downtrend? So if we get that lower high and lower low on the weekly, the downtrend is confirmed, and we'll be zooming back out to the monthly to try and look for a monthly higher low to form. So the most important thing for me, for miners, gold, and the dollar, is going to be what the dollar does. I do believe that that's going to be a significant factor in terms of the correlation as to what to be watching. And we should get some clarity there within the next month next 4 weeks of trading or so, and we'll continue to check in on it. Until then, hope you have a good rest of your weekend. So we got a lot of pictures this time around. One of the highlights of the trip. So when I was at the Conundrum Hot Springs from last time around, people suggested going to Lake Basin. And I said, sure, why not? I got nothing better to do. So headed that way, just some more campsites along the way, leaving some footprints and some towns. This is Ouray and Silverton that I was going past. Just some really cool small little towns nestled in the heart of some huge mountains with some really cool roads going through them. And there's so many pull-offs and so many views. It's hard to stay concentrated when you are new to Colorado and it's just these massive scenic views all around. There's some really cool colors on these mountains. Obviously, doesn't do it justice here, but different minerals eroding away, and red and yellow and brown and orange. There's another little cute town from above. So this is the hike up to Lake Basin, and I was pretty beat up that day. I forget why. It wasn't too brutal of a hike. It was pretty steep. Had a big pack on, had a big water jug and all that. But I got to this point, which is pretty much there's 2 levels. There's one level up, and then there's another one. And I saw tents over here, and I thought, this is a nice spot. Cool mountain, little lake. Maybe I'll just pitch my tent here for the night. And I said, no, I'll keep going up. It might be worth it, and it certainly was. One of the best spots that I went to on the entire road trip, just in terms of, astounding beauty. And a fun aside is this has been the background of my computer for the last, I'm not lying, for the last 3 years. And my previous partner went over her house one day, and the background of her computer is pretty much this exact picture, but from maybe 50, 100 feet to the right and in the winter. Exact same place, and it was from her trip to Lake Basin. So that was some pretty cool synergy. But there was a marmot who lived there, some nice wildflowers. The wildflowers were mind-blowing, as you can see. Just, again, so much more than I anticipated would be in a pretty arid environment that is Colorado, but just lush wildflowers at the right time of year. And this was the surround sound or surround view, panoramic view all around. That's my favorite camping spot. Sweet picture. Did have a thunderstorm roll up out of nowhere. That's the danger. This is up over the tree line, over 11,000 feet up. I think it was somewhere around, I forget, between 11 and 12. But a storm came out of nowhere from behind this ridge and dropped a little bit of snow, a little bit of hail that very quickly melted. But just in terms of the speed that it came over with no warning, but you can't see the clouds on the other side. So that was definitely a wake-up call to be more attentive. This was a rock that a marmot lived under, and that's just his life. This is what he looks at every single day. The rock is pretty much right where I'm standing, and that was blowing my mind. That's just all he knows. That's outside for him. Pretty good luck out in terms of where that dude found to live. So this is now pretty much, I stayed for 2 days, and my agenda was, I wonder what this looks like from that mountaintop or that mountaintop. So this is me exploring right here, this little river that's feeding, or this creek feeding the runoff into this extremely mineral rich, that's why it's this color. Ice cold, did dive in, but you can only stay in there for, a minute or two. But ended up hiking up into that little crevice to see where it went. And there was some cool snow melting and some, again, the white rocks of the minerals running off of the mountains, and some cool sculptures of snow. And that's one of the views from above. And you can see it's just valleys down there below. That's where you hike up. And that's the river that I climbed up. And then you can see it going down even further. That's where my picture was and where I put my tent up. And again, it's the kind of thing where I was alone in this place, the vast majority. There were 2 women that camped a bit further up. And other than that, I had this entire place to myself. This is from another peak. So that last picture was from up here. And then this is from a completely different angle. And it's a good spot. You should go to Lake Basin in Colorado. And that's the view back down the valley from where we hiked up, where I hiked up. And I got all poetic up there. And I do a thing where I associate music with memories. So I have a really good memory in terms of memorizing things in school and memorizing lyrics of songs. So what I'll do is I'll be in a moment and I'll suck in that moment as much as I can while I'm playing music. And I associate that memory and the sense and all my senses with that song. And so for this song, or for this memory, I was sitting up there at sunset and I was playing Fool on the Hill. And so now anytime that I hear Fool on the Hill by the Beatles, I'm taken right back to this spot, and it's a very vivid memory for me. And I do that with a lot of songs and a lot of places that I go. So potentially something you can play with yourself, but it's really good for memory recognition for me to have an audio trigger almost to bring me back into that moment. I got poetic and I wrote something about religion, and I'll see if I can find it. I'll be right back. I can't find it, but I recreated it for this post a while ago. Some of the similar themes. Anyways, that's that. That's Ice Lake Basin, Colorado. Go to it, and we'll see you tomorrow.